Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the S25 Ultra from Samsung. I thought we'd compare it, everything from the displays to the overall speed, applications, cameras, and more. And these start at $1199, go up to $1,599 for the iPhone, and then with the S25 Ultra, it's actually a little bit more expensive at $1,299.99 up to $1,659.99. Both have the same storage options, which are not expandable: 256, 512, and 1 terabyte. Now, both of these do have different discounts depending on what carrier you get, but overall, those are just the starting prices without any discounts whatsoever. When it comes to the display, well, there's a big difference here. The first thing is the anti-reflective coating. On the S25 Ultra, you can see it's much better than the iPhone. The overall quality of the displays is similar, but with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, it just doesn't have the anti-reflective display. You can see it here with the camera overhead reflecting in the display. Just a massive difference overall there. When it comes to the displays, the iPhone 16 Pro Max actually has ceramic shield. It's 6.9 inches, 2,868 by 1,320 at 460 pixels per inch. It goes up to 2,000 nits, is 120 hertz, and can go down to 1 nit of brightness. So it goes very dim overall, and in general, it's a pretty nice display. With the S25 Ultra, we also have that anti-reflective coating that I mentioned before. It's a 6.9-inch display, 1440 by 3120 pixels at 505 pixels per inch. Again, 120 hertz, but it goes up to 2600 nits of brightness in sunlight, so it's a little bit better there overall. When it comes to PWM or pulse width modulation, basically the way the overall display controls brightness, both of them use the same technology. It'll flash the display faster or slower depending on the brightness of the display, and it can vary the actual flashing rate based on that, and this can cause many people's eyes to either have eye strain, can cause nausea, or even in some cases cause headaches and just overall eye strain. Both of these phones have that. However, the S25 Ultra is at a much higher rate of 490 hertz or so. With the 16 Pro Max, it's around 480 hertz above 39% brightness. So both really shouldn't bother your eyes unless you're super sensitive to PWM, but they do technically both have them, and you can see that under slow motion at 120 hertz and 240 hertz. So you can see what it looks like there. However, it's harder to see unless you're using a camera with maybe a faster shutter speed. When it comes to connectivity, both have 5G, both have Wi-Fi 7, and Bluetooth as well. Slightly different variants, but both are fairly similar. When it comes to the overall speed of the connectivity, well, I do have a Wi-Fi 7 router, and some people have asked me to test this, so let's go ahead and check it between both devices on the same network. So we'll start with the iPhone. I'll hold it the exact same way with both devices. Again, I'm using a Wi-Fi 7 device that's 1,000 down, and the overall upload speed can vary, but you can see I'm getting over 800 megabits per second on the iPhone 16 Pro Max. Upload speed, unfortunately, is around 40 megabits per second, so the highest we're hitting here is 918 megabits per second down, and we'll give it a second to go to the upload speed. So on the iPhone, 918 megabits per second down, 39.6 megabits per second up. Again, you can see it's running Wi-Fi 7 in the upper right here on the S25 Ultra. Let's go into the same app. So again, holding it the same way, it's actually starting off a little bit slower. Again, I have 1,000 megabits per second down, and it's picking up to around, well, almost 800 megabits per second. It should be very similar to what we have on the iPhone since we have a similar modem setup. So after running both of them, I tried it multiple times on the S25 Ultra. We saw a little bit better speeds on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but this can vary greatly depending on other devices connected and more. But in general, they should both be plenty fast. Now, if you want to use your connection, but also need to protect your identity against spam, online stalking, or data leaks, today's sponsor Surfshark has a new option for alternative ID and alternative number. Within the Surfshark app, there's actually an alternative ID option, and you can generate an alternative or separate online name, email, and US phone number, using a different age, gender, and home address as well. This can be very helpful when you're signing up for a service you don't necessarily trust to keep your information safe. It also allows you to register for discounts and keep your main number spam-free. You can set it up in the Surfshark app and also install an extension in Chrome, Firefox, and Edge to allow it to autofill your alternate information for when you're just not sure you should actually use your real information just yet. To create an alternative phone number or ID for yourself, check out Surfshark in the description below and go go to surfshark.com/altzolotech and get an alternative number plus 4 extra months of Surfshark. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. Now, when it comes to the overall speakers of both devices, many people have asked me how they compare. So I thought maybe we'd play the same music, see how they compare with one another, and see how loud they go as well. We'll start with the iPhone. According to the sound level meter, the overall decibel level was about 90 decibels or so on the iPhone 16 Pro Max at the peak level, and then 94 on the S25 Ultra. You might hear 95 or so, but it's definitely louder. However, at those peak volumes, it's not as clear as if you just bring the volume down ever so slightly. When I listen to this off camera, I listen to the same track on both devices, and I would say the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a little bit more clarity and a little bit more pronounced bass. However, the S25 Ultra has a little bit better, maybe treble. It seems very sharp, maybe even harsh a little bit. But as far as the overall quality, I would say the 16 Pro Max sounds a little bit better, but maybe that's because I've had it longer and the speakers have worn in a little bit. But either way, both are very loud, but if you want the loudest, the S25 Ultra has that for now. Both devices are made out of titanium. However, tests have shown that the iPhone seems to have a little bit higher grade titanium, but either way, both feel built very, very well. With the iPhone, of course, we have ceramic shield, like I mentioned before, and it sort of flows over to the edges where it curves around the back. But the design in general is very familiar. We've had the same sort of design setup for years since the iPhone 12, and it maybe will change with the iPhone 17, but basically we've got the 3-camera bump on the back. On the right-hand side, we have our power sleep wake button. We have a new camera control button that's also a button but a touch surface, so we can zoom in and out and do other functions. On the bottom, we have USB-C, we've got a microphone and a speaker, and then on the left-hand side, we have an action button that's programmable and our volume buttons. Not a whole lot going on the top. When it comes to the S25 Ultra, again, very similar to what we had before, but they've rounded the corners. So they've squared off the edges here, rounded the corners, and that's basically the difference here. When it comes to the design, again, we have our volume button on the right-hand side, power sleep wake. On the bottom, we have USB-C, microphone, SIM card tray, which is nice. We don't have in the US on the iPhone. Then we have a microphone, and then we have the S Pen that's built in. On the left-hand side, it looks like we have a millimeter wave antenna, and then on the top, we have 2 microphones. On the back, we have a very familiar camera array that they've stuck with for a while, and they seem to be sticking with the same designs for the past few years from both Apple and Samsung. So that's good and bad as the devices start to look a little bit dated since they haven't been updated. But overall, they're very noticeable and very familiar. Again, Samsung this year has gone with a flat display, which is great, and that's something that a lot of people don't really like, the curved display, and the overall curved sides make it something that people may miss, but the flattened sides on the S25 Ultra make it easier to hold on to. So it seems like it's sort of a nice compromise, and it feels a little bit different. Now, of course, one of the biggest considerations for both of these phones is the cameras. The forward-facing cameras on both of them are 12-megapixel sensors. So overall, you get a little bit more depth of field with the 16 Pro Max at 1.9 as far as the aperture, and 2.2 on the S25 Ultra. Both can record in 4K 60, and you have all the same sort of features but pro camera modes on the S25 Ultra. When it comes to the rear cameras, there's a very big difference here since we have more cameras on the S25. But with the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we have a main 48 megapixel f1.78, an ultra-wide 48 megapixel f2.2, and a telephoto 12 megapixel f2.8 that has 5 times optical zoom. You also have 4K 120, a studio quality 4 mic array. You can change the audio mix with wind reduction, and you have log recording, ProRes, and more. With the S25 Ultra, of course, we have more cameras on the back this year. With the rear cameras of the S25 Ultra, we have a 200 megapixel f1.7 wide, a 50 megapixel 5x optical zoom using a periscope telephoto lens, a 10 megapixel f2.4 3x optical zoom, a 50 megapixel f1.9 ultra wide, which is new this year. We can record in 8K 30. We have pro video modes with log recording. We can adjust the aperture of photos after the fact like we can on the iPhone. We have improved generative editing as far as the microphone goes. I'll show you in a little bit. And also, portraits are more accurate and should have more realistic skin tones. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what they're capable of in real-world use. I left everything on default and just took a bunch of photos and videos. So let's take a look now. This is the front-facing camera of the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the S25 Ultra. You'll see overall the video looks pretty great on both. 4K 60, we can go up to 8K on the S25 Ultra, and they both have new modes to help with audio. On the iPhone, we have the regular mode you're hearing right now. We have a new studio mode that sort of makes it sound like you're in the studio. We have an in-frame mode, and that just changes the sound again a little bit more for what you're hearing in the frame. And then we have a cinematic mode that brings in a little bit of the ambient noise, but is also sort of what you would have in a cinematic video. With the S25 Ultra, we can use AI to take out background sounds. So right now it's a little bit windy, and if we analyze the sound, you can see here that you can actually reduce the wind, you can reduce background noises that it identifies, and it takes it right out of the video. So both are very impressive as far as the overall sound quality, but I think the S25 Ultra has it beat as far as that goes, just since you can sort of modify it other than just selecting a specific mode. But let me know what you think of the overall video and audio quality between both the iPhone 16 Pro Max and the S25 Ultra. Now on the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we do have the camera control button. Press this, it opens up the camera. And if we spin it around here, if we press a little bit, we can zoom in and out. I don't know that this button is very helpful. Some people might really like it, but you can switch between different modes, and you have a bunch of different options for tone, either before or after the fact. So if you want to adjust the tone of the overall photo, you can do that here. And if you see this in the background, as I adjust it, it changes what it looks like greatly. So depending on what you'd like, you can adjust that style. Of course, when it comes to video recording, if we go back to video here, go into video, we have typical modes with 4K 60, 4K 120 this year. You can record in that and just slow it down or use it all together. And also, of course, we have a bunch of different options for ProRes with lossless. We can use log and much more. So we have a lot of different options for ProRes, and it's a great video camera. But Samsung this year also has a lot of great features. So within the camera, if we go in, we have video, of course, just like we do before, but also we have a lot of different options with HDR. Again, we can go up to 8K video. And then if we go into maybe the Pro video mode, we have additional options. So not only can you adjust things such as what we have here with the lenses, but you also have the option for different things such as log or HDR, or you can even adjust tones. You can adjust the exposure monitor. You can use false color even to determine the overall exposure. Lots of professional tools that you don't get on the iPhone without a third-party app. So lots of great tools here. Again, UHD at 120 frames per second as well. So lots of great features. Both are pretty good cameras, but of course you saw the video example in the video already, but let me know which one you think looks best and sounds best as well. Now, the battery on both devices is pretty good overall. Many people have done tests already with this, and depending on the use case, it can vary who gets through the day a little bit longer. But the iPhone 16 Pro Max has a 4,685 milliamp hour battery. Apple says it's good for 33 hours of video playback, and while I was traveling, it actually did quite well. It typically got me through the day. Sometimes I was down to 10%. Other days I had about 40 or 50% left. If we go into our battery health, it does tell us on the iPhone, I have 116 cycles as this is my main phone since its launch, and I have 100% capacity as far as the health goes. If we take a look at the last 10 days, I used it, well, today, 3 hours and 22 minutes, and I still have a good amount left, 66% of my battery life left. I usually, again, get through the day with about 40 to 50% left. But the S25 Ultra I've been using as well for about a week, and in general, it's pretty good. If we go into our battery here, go to battery, you'll see it says 3 days, 4 hours left because I haven't used it as my main phone, but I have gone back and forth quite a bit, and it seems to get me through the day easily with 50% left. So I don't know if that's because the overall operating system is more optimized, which it certainly seems to be, but we have things such as background usage limits, lots of different options here as well. But you can see the charging where I charged it a little bit today, and you can see more since last charge, which is again something Apple should add. So you'll see the overall usage here. So in general, it does get me through the day. We've got more details, of course, and both of them charge pretty quickly. It shouldn't be any different than what we had with the previous version of the S24 Ultra, which means about an hour and 18 minutes to a full charge, 50% in 20 minutes, 80% in about 37 minutes. So it charges very fast to that point. However, the 16 Pro Max is a little bit slower. 2 hours and 20 minutes from 0 to 100, 50% in 26 minutes, 80% in about 57 minutes according to Charge Labs. So definitely a little bit slower with the iPhone. However, the iPhone does support 25-watt fast charging via wireless. So with the new MagSafe adapter, you can charge a little bit faster wirelessly, but if it gets too hot, it will slow that down. But with the S25 Ultra, they've seemed to manage the overall heat pretty well. And that carries across to the processor. With the iPhone 16 Pro Max, we have the A18 Pro with 8 gigs of RAM. And again, as I mentioned before, storage up to 1 terabyte. With the S25 Ultra, we have the Qualcomm Snapdragon Elite, specifically worked with between Qualcomm and Samsung, and it should be a little bit better. 12 gigs of RAM, storage up to 1 terabyte, and they also have a new vapor chamber to help dissipate heat a little bit better. So while it does get a little bit warm like the iPhone, it doesn't seem to get as warm as fast or stay that warm since it's dissipating a lot of heat. Now, before we take a look at the overall speed comparison, let's talk about some of the features. So the iPhone 16 Pro Max is running iOS 18 or 18.3 at this point, and this has Apple Intelligence. That's, of course, locked to specific regions. We have things such as visual intelligence on the iPhone 16 models where we can identify different things. So, for example, we could identify this using ChatGPT or just search in general and see what it says with Google. But we've had something like this with Google Lens for quite some time. So you'll see it thinks it's the S24 Ultra. So definitely fairly similar as far as the looks, but a little bit different as we talked about before. We also have enhancements to Siri that integrates directly with ChatGPT. So you can ask things such as, get a pizza recipe from ChatGPT that would be good to make this evening. Give it a second, it's working with ChatGPT and it will give information about that. So give it a second and it will come back with that. And again, it sometimes can take a little bit, but here's the ingredients and it works pretty well. We also have things such as image editing. So if we go into an image here, And if we go to the cleanup option, it's built in here. It can sometimes take a little while to actually allow you to do this, but we could highlight something and have it try and erase it. There it goes. It selected it by itself. Give it a second and it will try and erase it. Sometimes it does a great job. Other times it doesn't. So again, it didn't select it properly. There we go. So it does a good job overall, but it just takes some time to use it. Again, we have writing tools built in with Apple Intelligence, and that's something that we can again do with the Samsung as well. But if we go into Notes, we have Apple Intelligence here where we can have it proofread or just generate something altogether with composing. We can go here, make a list of the specs of the S25 Ultra. And let's go ahead and have it try that. And it's a little bit slow. It heats up the phone quite a bit. There we go. There's all the information about it. Whether or not it's 100% correct is hard to say. Doesn't appear to be, but it is doing the information here and giving us more information. It does proofread and more. And of course, we can generate images with Image Playground. So a lot of these features we know about. Of course, it's iOS, gets regular updates, and is supported for years. But with Android 15 and OneUI 7, we have quite a few different options. Gemini is heavily integrated, and we also have something called a personal data engine. It can be turned off, but it learns about you over time. You'll see here with this card, it gives more information of something I might be interested in. I may not be. It hasn't given me a ton of relevant information yet, but I need to use it a little bit more. But all cloud data is end-to-end encrypted. But basically it can learn routines. Something coming a little bit later is if you maybe have a Samsung TV, it can learn your routine, know that you've fallen asleep because you're using a Samsung watch or maybe the Ring, and bring the TV volume down or turn the TV off altogether and adjust the temperature to help you sleep better. So these are all things that it can do because they're heavily integrated. The Now bar we have as well, which is similar to Live Activities, and Gemini is something that's just on another level compared to Apple Intelligence. For example, you can use a photo to say what can you do with ingredients in your refrigerator. Or we can take this little Android that I have here and have it tell me more information about it. So we'll bring up Gemini, maybe attach a photo from the camera, give it a second, and we'll attach that. And then we can say, what is this and what can I do with it? And it takes a second. It's very fast generally. And it says it's a collectible figure of Android robot, the mascot of the Android operating system. You can display it, use it for photography. It's a toy, a collectible. And if I didn't have Do Not Disturb on, it would actually talk to me with this. You, of course, can do some really impressive things. So one of the things I thought was most impressive is if we go here, look at videos on YouTube and find all the specs about the S25 Ultra and put them in a note. So give it a second, and there we go. It pulls that information sometimes from YouTube and one more. It tells you where it's coming from, and you can see more information about it. So lots of different things, new features, and more. The overall possibilities of Google Gemini are so impressive, and it can tell what's on your display. You can create a GIF or GIF out of it, and it's just super great to use overall. It's something I've really enjoyed using and makes life a lot easier and seems more useful with things that you can create or maybe just ask questions and get relevant information. Now, of course, we do have the S Pen. They did remove Bluetooth this year, but you can get a Bluetooth version. But that's because apparently Samsung says barely anybody used the option to maybe use it for a camera. But we do have things such as circle to search. We can search this here, move it around, search it. It'll tell us what it is, generate information off of it. And you'll see it's likely a screenshot from the smartphone showing a notification or message with the text, "Good day." So super helpful, and you can share this, whatever you want. And of course you can draw with this, use it for notes or whatever you'd like. So it's an option if you'd like it, but not everyone uses that. We have other options such as Dex, and we are going to get improvements with both of these. Android 15 is going to be on here for 7 years with updates and features and more. So we're going to get about the same life out of our devices. You may need to change your battery in that time, but overall, both very good from both manufacturers. When it comes to the speed of the device, well, that's where we've got an impressive speed this year with the S25 Ultra. So if we go into Geekbench 6, I've run it multiple times on the iPhone. Let's go into it on the S25 Ultra, and we'll take a look at the history since I ran it before. So let me show you the highest scores I've seen so far so we can compare. And you'll see here, I ran it earlier today. So the single core is better on the iPhone at 3,534 compared to 3,059 on the S25 Ultra. However, the multi-core score on the iPhone is lower at 8,781 compared to 9,607 on the Samsung S25 Ultra. So we're right in the same territory, very fast devices for both, and great to use overall. The smoothness, the overall usability, just swiping through things, ProMotion on the iPhone or 120 Hz on the S25 Ultra, just is super fast all the time. From scrolling, you can see that under slow-mo. Just using it in general is really great on either device. If we want to quickly snap a photo, we can go into the camera. Let's switch over to photo and try that again. So we'll go to photos, then we'll close it out, and then we'll go right back in, snap a photo, and you'll see it's about the same amount of time as far as the overall shutter and taking a photo and what's appearing. Again, switch to video. The zoom in and out is better on the iPhone, but decent on the S25 Ultra, and both are just great as far as that goes. When it comes to things such as the browsers, you'll see they're both very fast and smooth. The animation speed is a little bit higher on the S25, so it feels a little bit smoother, but both are very consistently smooth, so you can see that here. So great to use that way. And when it comes to maybe a game, let's go ahead and load Real Racing 3 quickly and just see how it does. So let me find it here. So we'll open Real Racing 3 on both. See how fast it loads. Now on the iPhone, it goes into a game mode. That game mode helps things be a little bit faster as far as the processor focused on the game, where on the S25 Ultra, it actually asked me, do we want performance or do we want better battery life? And let's give it a second to load. So let's go into it. It's taking a little while on the S25 Ultra, but now we're right in, and you'll see here, if we go home, I played it a little bit on the iPhone, but let's go into enter and I'll show you the smoothness overall. So again, it wants us to play here like this. It says, okay, great. Now tilt to the right, tap the icon. We can change the camera and tap to continue. So let's go ahead and see what it's like as far as smoothness. So we'll try that on the S25 Ultra. Super smooth experience so far. It looks good, nice and crisp, and the overall experience looks really good. On the iPhone, let's go ahead and race here. Give it a second to load. And you'll see it's actually not as smooth as I tilt back and forth. It seems a little bit choppy. And I'm an iPhone user, so either way, it definitely looks a little bit better on the S25 Ultra as far as smoothness. There's frame rate drops here on the iPhone, it looks like, where compared to the S25 Ultra, it seems to be just incredibly smooth overall. So let's see if we can reset here. Just let it run. So let's back up. See if we can turn here. And it gives you an idea of what it looks like. So I would say frame rate wise, it definitely looks better on the S25 Ultra, at least to my eyes, and seems more smooth overall. Now, both of them heated up a little bit while using it. The S25 Ultra is a little bit cooler feeling, probably because it dissipates heat a little bit better than the iPhone. But again, the frame rates seem to be better on the Samsung, which surprises me. But overall, I think both are a great experience. Both are worth trying out. If you like Android or Samsung, it's definitely worth picking up and trying out. If you prefer the iPhone, again, both are great. They have different cameras, different capabilities, but the overall usability seems to be very good for both of them. But let me know which one you think is best in the comments below. Which one did you pick up? Are you waiting for the iPhone 17, or is the iPhone 16 Pro Max good enough? Or maybe you want to wait until next year when they maybe change the design more on the S25 or do something different. Let me know in the comments below. I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.